right? And you guys would need, yeah, you guys would need to have PG admin in case you guys want to see the databases, without, directly from a, GUI. So this is optional, but it's preferable. Cool. Okay. All right. Let's get started. Okay. So right. So yesterday I think we installed our type-ORM. So just add this in. Well, first, so when you're using type-ORM or any ORM for that matter, there's like basically a two-step process. First, you create a connection, right? So first, you create a connection to your database, right? And after that, after creating a connection, you basically test it out if you want to, but you have to make sure that your connection is up. So for that, we'll be using a dot then system right here. And after that, in case of type ORM, we have a concept of models. Obviously, in every database, models are used to describe your database schema and what tables look like, right? And we have another concept of entities. So entities are nothing but actually when you're working with type ORM, entities allow you to manage your database tables. So they sort of define your table schema and they reduce any kind of extra SQL or writing queries which might be used for setting up your tables and those things. So entities will be used for managing our tables and models will be used for data fetching in those parts. Cool. All right. So let's just start. So if you guys have your Postgres installed, so the first thing you're going to do is obviously we're going to import type ORM. So import type ORM again, it's right at the top. And then we will do, yeah, and then we will actually directly start adding in. So the first thing, again, we have to create a connection first, right? So I created an Express application here. I'll just start writing code for creating a connection, database connection here. Create DB connection. Cool. So type ORM dot create connection. Cool. Now, if you head over to your type ORM configuration, right? There are many things that you need to take care of, right? But I'll just give you the things directly. What all you need to care about. So first is again it's an ORM, so it can work with multiple databases. So first is obviously the database. The database is Postgres, right? So Postgres, right? And then the next thing is your port. Which port does Postgres use? So port number is 5432. This is the default for every Postgres database. In case you guys are still unaware, like where do we find these things? Your database name is right here in PG admin. And if you are using Elephant SQL, in that case, again, your database things will be directly given there as well. Just open up Elephant SQL and show you that. Mm, right. So in case of Element SQL, these details are required by the way. So obviously first is your host. So in this case, we have the specific URL. When you are working on your own device, it will be a local host. Okay. Next is your database name. So in this case, it's a default database. You have the name right here. Any database will work. It doesn't need to be specific to this thing. In case of your own database, in your own local system, you have to create a new database from here. So you can just add a database name. Let's just add something like Node Shesh, something like that. Okay. So in case you guys are following along with the local database, you will be following this specific process. So obviously the node will add that owner. Let's just give it to Postgres. So Postgres is the default user created in the Postgres databases. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just
Yes, sir.
Postgres and cool. So and then we have our database gated, right? That's the only thing you need to do when you're working on your own local system. Okay. In most cases, you'll be working with your own local devices or some managed external databases. In case of managed external databases, you don't need to set up these things. But in case you're working on your own device, you will need to do this specific things. Cool. So we have our node sesh right here. Cool. We have the database here, right? There are multiple other CLI tools as well for Postgres which you can use for creating databases, right? So not database. Here we'll name our node sesh. That would be our database name. So type would be again the type of the connection we're creating. So it is a Postgres connection. The database name is this, right? We also need to give username and password. So again, the username would be Postgres because that's the owner we selected, right? And the password it would depend when you set up your own local system, right? You would have the password set up for this as well, right? So for now, for mine, in my case, it's just password, right? If you're working with Elephant SQL, it would be right given right here. So if you just review this out, you'll be able to see the password. Cool. So that with the password, port, and let me just add it then. So if you have worked with asynchronous functions before, asynchronous function have the concept we can use dot then dot finally dot catch chaining functions, right? So these allow us to basically, it waits for the specific function to complete the task and then runs the following function, right? So we'll just do a simple console.log right here saying database connection or connected maybe. Yeah. Cool. So we have a type, we have username, we have password, we have database, we have port. There are two more things we will add here. One is synchronize. So this is again a type ORM thing. So let's say you want to make some changes in your tables, right? So in that case, you will be changing your entities basically. So like I said, entities is one more thing that will allow you to manage your table schemas. So you'll change your entities. Your entities are supposed to be inside your this. So not synchronized. That will be true. And we have another field known as entities, and it will be inside this. So all your entities would be imported into this entities array, right? And basically, synchronize will make sure that all those schemas that you're defined in your entities will be matching with your Postgres database. Okay. So for now, we'll just keep synchronize as true. In a production grade server, make sure to turn this off because in a production grade server, we don't want to make any changes to the database. Okay. While in dev, we can set it as true. Cool. And here you have all our entities. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So that's that. Now, if you take a look at your package JSON, right? We had added a type ORM yesterday, right? But one thing that we are still missing is the Postgres client. Okay. So type ORM works with multiple databases, but to reduce the size of the actual module and actual complete package, right? Nice. All right. So to reduce the size of a complete package server code, right? Type-ORM does not package client libraries by itself. So for Postgres, we'll be adding our own client library, right? So for that, we'll just do an npm install of PG, right? PG is the Postgres client library. It's available. You can check this out on npm.js as well, right? So now we have the PG library, cool, and we can exit this, right? So that is added. Let's see if all of our configuration is correct, and let's see if our database is going to work or not. So let's do an npm run dev. If everything is perfect, you'll get this message right here. Are you guys done till here?
Yes, typing it out.
You guys are here?
Yes, sir.
If anybody's still left, please do tell.
Yeah, I'm doing 1 second.
Okay, cool. Right. Are you done?
I think one of my ports or something's wrong. So, 1 second.
Can you tell me what the error might be saying?
Uh, it's just saying 1 second. I forgot to put the port number.
You forgot the port number. Okay.
Now,
So
also it's showing connect econ refused.
econ refused. So
Yeah.
that happens when your database is not actually running. Okay.
Hmm.
So either your username password is incorrect or your database is not running. Okay.
Can you just show me the elephant SQL, the
Okay.
database
Connection.
name, username, and stuff?
All right. Cool. So for Element SQL, this is your username as well as default database.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So it would be something like this, and yeah,
Yeah,
and
got it.
password would be this thing.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Huh.
So if we save this, and okay, so it's throwing something. Okay, it's throwing because this is what it says. So that the reason for that is our host name, I guess. Yes. So when you're not using a local host, right? You would have to define the host name.
Okay.
So in this case, we would have, I guess, this one. This should be our host name,
Okay.
right? If I save this thing on. Okay, cool. So now my elephant SQL is also done.
I got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's just set it for localhost for me. I'll just stick to localhost, right? And username would be Postgres and password would be password. This is sure. Cool. So now we're here, right? So we had a model file. We created a user.js model file. This at the moment does not have anything. We'll go over this once after this. Right. First thing we're going to do is create a top level entity folder because we have to first create the table and then we'll be creating our models. Right. So entity, right? And here again we'll create a file. We'll call this user schema.js. Okay. So this will be responsible for managing the schema of a user table. Right. So the first thing we're going to do is import entity manager. Okay. This is again from type.org. So let's do a quick const entity manager or entity schema, I guess. Entity schema, yeah. Let's do entity. And we call this require type ORM. And from type ORM, you'll be importing entity schema. Got it? All right. Next thing is our creating the entity actually. So we are going to do the new entity schema and we'll define everything. So first we'll give the name of our entity. We'll call this user, the capital U, right? This is going to be a target. So target refers to the model name. So for now, we'll just simply do right here user, but this user need to be defined in our models user.js. Okay. And the next is your columns. So here we define the actual schema. So the one first is a very obvious one, ID. So every user will have an ID, right? This ID will be a primary key. So we'll type primary as true, right? It will be of type integer. So we'll say type integer. I'll also drop you a link for this as well. I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere. It's for your, it will have all these things basically in an example format. So you guys can follow along with this in JS if you want to, okay, sometime later. And then we'll have this will be auto generated. Primary key ID will be auto generated. So we'll set generated to true, right? Next thing we need in columns is email, right? So email will be your again of type varchar. So if you guys have worked with SQL before, right? Varchar is used to store string or character arrays. Those things. So basically, strings are used to store. The type varchar is used to store strings. Okay, and your password would be again of type varchar. Okay, so this is going to be it, and we also need to export this. So we'll do a quick exports dot user equals. Or maybe let's do it as user. No, yes, right, right. Mm, let's do one thing. Let's do it in this manner. Let's leave it as it. Okay, fine. Hopefully this does not throw me in errors. Next is let's head over to our models. So as we saw in our user schema, we defined the target user here, but it wasn't actually defined anywhere except for this. So it isn't actually defined anywhere in this whole file. We'll have to define it in our user.js model file, and then we'll actually import it to here. Okay. So this will be a class. So if you guys know how to do this correctly, you probably shouldn't mess it up. If you know about oops, if you know how classes work, this wouldn't be much of an issue. Okay. So class user, right? We'll make a constructor for this. We'll define all the fields that it's going to take. So ID and email and password, right? And then we'll do this dot ID equals ID, this dot email equals email, and then this dot password equals password. Okay, and my bad. Okay, cool. And then we'll do a modules dot export of this, and we'll just do user. Okay, now we'll import this user here, right? So let's just do const user equals require, right? And remember, we in just like in React, we just use a relative routing. So we'll do a dot slash models slash user, right? Or maybe we can do this instead, user. Okay. So this should, in theory, work, right? Let's see. So we have a model setup, we have a schema setup. If we add it to our entity, right? Let's actually add one more thing, our schema. We'll call this verified. So this will be a boolean. So this type of field would probably be used somewhere in when you're working with uh, emails which might be unverified. So we have the whole remember the whole email verification system where it sends you a confirmation email, right? So in those cases, we'll have this verified flag somewhere in our schema itself, right? And let's define the same thing in our model as well. This dot verified equals verified. Okay, and let's just do require right here, right? Require would be to entity slash user schema. So let's see if this throws some errors or not. Okay, let's just check it out once. So at this moment, it restarted, no issues. Are you guys following me till now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, no issues till now, right?
Yes, there are issues.
Okay, cool. So, right, we have our everything set up here from our entity point of view, right? Now, I said earlier that whenever you're working with these things, right? Whenever you're working with things like entities, right? It will automatically do your. Sorry, my bad. Just do this thing. Not use the schema. Okay. So whenever you're working with these things, the things like users, credentials, right? You have to make sure that those are secure. Okay. So although here we have defined the type as simple varchar, which will be a string, right? We would have to make sure that it is secured. Secured by what? I think I mentioned this yesterday. Hashing. Okay. So we'll be using hashing in our controller or in our model, either or. We'll write a logic and we'll see where we can place it. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our controller. Right. First, let's just do a simple write to a database for register. Just simple textual. Right. Okay. Let me just quickly refresh this thing up and see if we have. I have my schemas synchronized. Okay. So you can see here in the PGID, I have the user table created, and if we take a look at the properties, sorry, my bad. If you take a look at the columns, it has, yeah, so it has email, ID, password verified. So all the columns that we had defined in the entity are here, right? Uh, One more thing we can also do is define a default value for the verify. So since it's a Boolean type, right? We can define a default value of false to this because by default, no user will be verified. Okay. Now let's go back to this. So first do a const. So the first thing we're going to do is import type ORM, okay? And then we'll, or maybe not type ORM, we'll directly import something known as a get repository. Okay, it's a function in type ORM. Uh, get repository. I'll just name this to get repo. Or maybe just get repo. Okay, so repo is just a fancy term for table. Okay, so we'll first get the repo and then we'll use it. So let's get the repo here. So let's the name of our repository is will be this, the name that you have given in the schema. Okay. So we'll say uh, user repo. Okay, equals get repo, and we'll simply type the same string that we had defined in our schema user. Okay, and save this. Okay, cool. Now, saving them in the database. For this, there are multiple, you can actually check out the type ORM documentation and find out all the function find operations. Here, select, insert using query builder. There's a lot of things. Right? You can work with, you can find out more about this by just looking at this. For now, I'll just directly write the uh, query for this. Okay. So it will be an await, right? So whenever you're writing or reading from database, it will be an asynchronous process because reading and writing of the database is, you don't know how long it will take. To make sure that the JavaScript waits for this, we'll be using await. We'll say use the repo dot save, right? And we'll have to make sure these things are already always given when passing it. So ID is automatically generated. We don't need to care about this. Email and password we need to give because it is not defined. Nothing is defined for these. Verified we can in theory skip because we have a default for this. Okay. So to save a user repo, we have to save a user, and user will have two mandatory fields: username and password, right? And ID should in theory be set as default. Const, let's just say new user equals user, and for data we'll say user new user. Okay, let's see if this works. So head back to your rester, right? And don't forget your method as post, because that is what we have set it as in our routes. So post. So it will be localhost 8000 slash user, because that is what everyone index.js slash user slash register, right? Header, don't forget this as well. Content type should be application JSON, right? And you have to define it in JSON format. For JSON format, make sure you also use double quotes with your keys as well as values. So we'll say email as, something. Let's just do something like test@test.com. Okay. Password, password is I'll just say it as password. Okay. Cool. Let's see if this works. So now you can see it said user registered. It says data of the user is email, this password is this, ID is this, verified is false. So we got success as true. Cool. Everything is correct, right? Everything is working. We can just verify this by looking at a PG admin. So if you click on this, and then click on the table button right here, it will show you the data for this. And you can see test@test.com, password, and everything is right there. Cool. Are you guys following me till now?
Yes, man.
Yes, man.
All right, great. And now a bit of other things that you need to make sure. So you have to make sure that your controllers are foolproof. So whenever your controllers are prone to errors, right? So what happens is that your server crashes, and sometimes the process will exit. Okay, and that will be an issue when you're working in production environments, right? There are ways to avoid crashing of servers and restarting those servers and then working, but an error pro server is not good. Okay, so when you're working with promises, right? When you're working with async await, it can get rejected as well. There might be cases that there might be cases where your email might be, invalid, or password might be invalid, something along those lines. And you have to make sure this is completely error proof. Okay. So for that, we'll be using error handling in JavaScript, which is try catch. Okay. You guys might have seen this before. In case you guys have not, uh, just take a look at the error handling part. Okay. So try and catch. This is important, by the way. So we'll just cut the whole thing, right, and place it in a try. The actual error handling is often very, very extremely nested, by the way. So you'll see tries, inside tries, inside catches. Those things will happen. Okay. But here we'll just do a top level error handling here, and it returns user registered. Everything's fine, right? Uh, Also, there are certain cases. There are things which you have to make sure, right? You have to test if an email is proper email. Right? So you want to make sure that your email is of type something like email at domain dot ext, something like that. Okay, so for this kind of checking, right, you guys would be using something known as regx or regex. Okay, regular expressions, by the way. So regex or regular expressions are used to check patterns in JavaScript. It's a very common thing, right? I probably wouldn't be covering it because I myself am not an expert in this, right? There are also libraries which help you do this. Yeah, so that is for creating your regular expressions. So you can take a look at this URL as well. We'll put on the chat. Right? So you have to make sure that an email is, it's an email, it's a valid email, right? And things like your password should be, minimum of 8, length and things like that. So before you do this whole process, right, of saving it, It's a simple, in theory, it's a simple database, right? But you have to make sure that these things are obviously validated, right? So in that cases, it would be something like, let's, I'll just do one for the password because I'm going to skip the regex part. Maybe tomorrow we'll take a look at this sometime later. It's not really something that I'm expert at. So let's just do a female, if email dot, password dot length, less than 8, right? So if that is the case, we're going to, simply throw an error, right? Simply going to throw an error saying that invalid password, right? And this could be even more, made into even more structured way. But for now, we'll just say invalid password. And in case of error, we'll just simply do here a return of res dot status. So this could be, in theory, what would happen here is that this will have another error handler except for the top level catch, right? But for now, we'll just simply do a 500 error. 500 error stands for internal server errors. So this is obviously not an internal server error. So what will happen is something like we'll have a top level try on this as well. Okay. So we'll just simply do JSON. Okay. So there are two functions for sending data. First is obviously send, and second is JSON. Okay. Both are extremely similar. The thing you must understand about JSON is that JSON will be used for sending JSONified data, right? And it's mostly used for sending structured data, and send is mostly used for sending string data or those things. So I'll just simply use JSON, and we'll simply say message uh, error dot message, and we'll do data of nothing and access of false. All right, and yeah, so it would look something like that. And to make it a bit more clear, we just add it in a single. All right, are you guys following with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's try sending some invalid password. Right, we'll call this test2. Okay, so it says invalid password right here, and returns false. Okay, so with this, it should not write anything in our database, right? So we have a test, and then other user that we just try to create was not, right? One more thing will be, again, there's one more thing that we need to take a look at in case this email already exists in the system. We need to say already in use. It would look something like that. Existing, let's say const existing user equals uh, user repo dot find one with email as email, right? And if we get an existing user, we'll simply throw another error saying uh, user already exists. I don't know if this will work, by the way. So let's just check this once. Okay. So we know test@test.com already exists, right? So let's see if this works or not. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, something happened. Oh, my bad. So I just need to make sure it's stopped. It's saying we cannot access this before initialization. Right. So let's try this. User already exists. Take a look at this. Rerun this query. I'm alright. Just rerun this. Yeah. So obviously it did not get added, and we can make sure that no duplicate email gets added to our system. Okay. So that simple database read write and a bit of handling at top level. Okay. Sometimes you'll see a folder known as handlers here. Okay. Uh, Handlers will have a bunch of JavaScript files, which would the only usage of those would be things like uh, capturing these errors on top level, right? So it would have something like it will have certain code and things like code of let's say invalid password, right? So something like this and such, right? So there will be times where the error would look something like this, and this will be actually matched against in a catch block, and it will be routed, and your response will be made in such a manner that it get sent back with a specific status code. Okay, so things like invalid password would be something like a user side error. So that would have, I think, status code of 300. I'm not perfectly correct on this, I guess, but yeah, it would have something like that. You would need a bit more, you'd have to write a lot more code and understand how these things work. There are also libraries which help with this pattern matching. I guess one, I think Sane was using was Yup, right? Right?
Yep.
Yep. So it's like there are libraries which help you with these kind of things as well, right? And there's one more that another framework known as Node.js uses. I don't remember the name of it. We'll go over there once a bit. So yeah, so we already got these things, right? Now I said we need to do hashing for the password. We did not do any hashing for the password just yet. The password is still being sent in stringified format, right? So for that, we'd be using something known as bcrypt, right? Bcrypt npm. So a library to help you hash passwords, okay? And whatever it is, you don't need to take a look at that. You just simply go over to npm install bcrypt and use it. So what happens is that first we import bcrypt, then we give the salt rounds. So salt is something which is added to your password to make it a bit more random. Okay, and then your password might be something we are getting this from a content, so it's in the password field, and some other plain text password. This I don't know. Basically, what will happen is that you will do hashing. This will do an autogen. We'll use this one. Right? So we'll do dot hash our password salt rounds. This will be a number, and then a function which will give you error for hash password. Right? I think we can also use promises. Yeah. So this will allow us to use promises. So we'll be using this one. Okay. Let's get back to it. Right. So the first thing we'll do is npm install bcrypt, bcrypt. Right. Hopefully, it does not throw an error. I have faced errors before. Yeah. All right. Cool. We got it. Are you guys following with me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool. So bcrypt, we're going to uh, require this. So bcrypt, we got bcrypt, right? And maybe we can actually instead of doing, we can directly get the hash dot hash. Okay. So the hash function will directly fetch it, right? Now we have to make sure this password is hashed. So for that, we can let's just leave this all checking part here, right? And after this, we'll do the hashing. So uh, hashing password. Okay. So let's do a const hashed password equals await. So it's a promise, right? We said we'll be using promises. So instead of then, we'll be using await, obviously, right? So hash await hash function that we just imported, right? First thing is plain password. So password and salt round. So we'll just simply define a constant await of const salt rounds. Okay. Let's take it as a 10. Okay. We will pass this to R here. Salt rounds. Okay. So we have the both things, right? We have our plain text password and salt rounds. Cool. And in our right, we'll actually do a hashed password, right? So in case you guys don't know, if you define it just like this, it basically translates to this. Okay. If you guys are new to JavaScript, this is just something you can sort of understand this. And we'll be doing the key value thing here, right? Let's do an npm run dev again. And all right, we're connected. Okay, let's delete this entry, or maybe you don't need to delete this entry, but I'll be deleting it. Right. So let's head back to our REST. We'll call our user. Let's just use my own name for now. At yeah, right, and password is password. Okay. Right. So let's see. Moment of truth. User already exists. Okay. So obviously there is some issues with this. Mm, so I'll just ignore this for a bit. But actually, what is happening here is that most likely it's sending some sort of object back, and it's you know sort of saying that it is already there. But obviously, it's not. I'll just comment it out for now. So user registered, and you can see under the password field, it's showing some sort of bunch of characters. Is it visible by the way? Just
Yes, sir. Hashed password.
yeah. So this is your hash password. Okay. Generally, you will see a pattern of dollar to B dollar. This is something that Bcrypt adds on its own. So if it starts with this, it's hashed by Bcrypt. Okay. So now we have a Bcrypt encrypted password in our database. So let me just quickly do this again, and we got our password, right? And verified is false, obviously. But we'll ignore the verified thing. This is just for showing it. All right. So hash password, everything is fine. The only thing that is left is to do the login part. So we created a user, right? We created an entity, we created a model, and we did the hashing part. The only thing that is left is to do the login one. And for that, again, if you go over to your npm.js bcrypt, right? So if you come down to promises here to check for to check a password. Okay. So it allows us to compare as well, right? It not only allows us to, yeah, you can see. So bcrypt compare password with hash password. Okay. So let's see if this works. So let's just whenever there's a login request, the first thing we're going to check is for our email if the user even exists in a system, right? So let's say const user equals await. Maybe we can put this user upon a global level. Okay, let's see if this works. This is not a very good practice again because there is no try catch for this, right? And we can do await user repo dot find one with email of email. Okay, it basically says it crashed something happened. Connection not found. Okay, so let's just actually just put it inside our try catch directly. Don't leave it out. All right, cool. So first we're going to check if a user exists with the email which has been sent to us from our request, right? And then we're going to compare our user.password, okay, with our bcrypt password, right? So const res, let's just use the result actually, because res is already used it. So it's a wait. Uh, we'll also import compare at the very top. We have a hash here. We'll add a compare. Const compare equals require decrypt dot compare. Got it. Cool. We'll do await compare, right? And we'll do first is the some of the plain text and the hash password. So first is the password we are receiving from our client, and then our hash password will be in our user dot password field, right? And if we say if result is true, we know that result is either true or false. So if result is true, we're going to send back, we're going to return res saying user logged in with data. Maybe we can directly add user here as not the best practice, but let's see. Okay, so rest login. Okay, let's see. So it says user logged in because my result was true. Okay, we can check that it's true. Okay, fine. All right. So that is how you compare. Check for email. Emails and password in this. Right? And there might be cases here which we have actually ignored the try catch completely. It's always preferable to have a try catch. Okay. And one more thing we're going to add at the very end, because obviously we have an if, we need to have an else as well, right? There's a specific style of coding in which people don't use else's at all. Okay, you'll see it's very common in backend, but we're going to stick to the else for now, right? And then it's going to be again return res dot status. Status will be 404 because we cannot find the user. Dot send. We'll just simply do a message saying invalid user credentials, and we'll do a data empty and success of false. Okay, cool. So login, we got verified. Let's use something like pass, just some typos, invalidated credentials. So obviously our authentication is working fine. Okay, there is still one thing left. I said we'll be using something known as a JWT. Uh, JWT. These stand for JSON Web Tokens. Right. This is like the one of the fancy new things that people love to use, just like MongoDB and so JWT is one of the new things that people love to use. JWTs are basically, I think, they are encoded data. Okay, so you can give any data in the JWT and it will encode it and send it to the client. Okay, and that JWT is verified whenever a request comes in. We'll verify that the JWT is a valid JWT or not. And if it's a valid JWT, we'll say, yeah, this person has been logged in. It's a valid token. It's a valid token, and then we'll send the data. Okay, whichever is requested, whatever is requested. In case it's not, obviously not logged in or invalid token or something like that. Right? We have our login right here. Next thing we need to do is, you know, create a JWT. Create and send a JWT. Okay, save this once and let's head over to our npm.js. JSON web token npm. Right, npm.js again. Npm install JSON web tokens. Signing is basically encoding it with our secret or private key, whatever the data might be. Data is payload, right? And sending it to the client, right? So JLT, it's often called as JOT, just a fancy name. Require JSON web token, JOT sign, private key, whatever it is. Okay, fine. We just do this for now. Okay. All right, let's just do this. Cool. So again, the first thing we have to do. Are you guys following me by the way?
Yes.
Yes, where?
JSON web token. Okay. So npm install JSON web token, right? So we're going to install this. Then the next thing is signing it. And the last thing that we need to make sure for checking if it's valid JLT or not, going to do the verify. Okay, so verify is the function which allows us to verify if a token is authorized or not. It's a real token or a fake token, right? So yeah, npm storage is selected. Um, let's import it, right? So const JWT equals require JSON web token, right? And while signing in, while logging in a user, we do uh, const access token equals JWT dot sign, right? And in the sign, first thing is your payload, which is a data. So in this case, we'll actually do this in our result here, right? Because we need to verify if the credentials are true, and only then we'll be creating our JSON, right? So in our data, I'll just send the email, and we'll send the user email. So it will be user dot email, right? So that's the only data we're going to be sending in our JWT. So user, we have it here. So its email is user dot email here, followed by the secret or private key. So secret or private key is just a random string of letters. People use long random number generators for this, random character generators for this. I'll just simply do secret, right? We'll also take a look at .env once I'm done with this whole thing. Okay, and again, it's an await thing because maybe not. It's not. It's not. Okay, cool. Do a simple jlt.sign, right? And we'd have a token. Cool, right? And in our data, right, when you're sending the data, let's just do user comma access token. Okay. So when we're logging it in, we'll have our access token as well. Let's do npm run dev of this. If it is connected, we can head over to our resto, right, and do our login. So now you get something like this. Right? Okay. When you're working with access tokens, you have to make sure that these are stored on the client side. It is not stored on the client side, more like it should be accessible by the client. Okay. What will happen in the future is that in a header, we have a header known as authorization. Okay. So we have an authorization header. We'll use basic for now, basic text, right? And followed by this string of characters. Okay. So you don't have to follow along this whole header part right now because this will be used whenever we're fetching some privileged information which should be only accessible to this specific user, right? So authorization header is used with the JWT token, right? So whenever you're making a request on the client side, on the front end side with the JWT, you have to make sure to include this authorization header with this specific, basic with the specific key, this specific token. Okay, I'll just remove this for now because just a login route, right? Okay, so access token is there. I'll just copy this and keep it somewhere, right? It's in my clipboard. All right. So we have send the access token, right? We'll add one more route. Okay, we'll call this a slash profile route to get the profile of the current user. And here actually we'll take a look at the how does the JWT work. Okay, so we'll do a router dot get because again we are getting the profile, right, of slash. Let's call it me route. Okay, and we'll just add here something from let's just call it uh, profile. Okay, you have to define this in our user controller profile, right? If you define this, it will crash, not an issue. So let's do an exports dot profile equals asynchronous because everything needs to be asynchronous on the backend, right? And voila. So what are we going to do? Let's just for now return a rest dot JSON of you know saying that your message uh, user profile sent and data with the user profile. For now we'll just keep it empty and success of true. Okay, so all right, so now it's working fine. Here we'll add something known as a middleware. Okay, so we'll make a top level directory. We'll call this middleware, right? Middlewares, and we'll create a middleware known as auth.js. Are you guys following with me?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do an exports dot
Yes,
auth.
sir.
Okay, and it will has three things: rec, this, and next. Okay, I'll just uh, I'll just teach you the concept of auth in a bit, right? Of rec, res, next, this thing. Okay, so what happens in your routes basically? We can add middlewares to any specific route. Okay, whenever you want to perform some sort of pre-processing or some sort of validation, anything, we can add a middleware. Okay, we can create a middleware and we can add it, right? For that, we'll just do we'll import it first here. Const auth equals require middleware slash auth, right? So we got the auth, and we'll call it just before a profile. So what will happen here is that on slash me route, it will first go through the auth function, right? And auth will do the validation of the reliability part. Then it will go to the profile function. Where it will actually fetch the data of your whatever data we are getting from the auth token, right? And it will fetch the profile from that payload. Okay. So rec res next. Rec res next. Okay. So we know rec stands for request and res stands for response. What is the next? So next refers to the next middleware in the line. In this case, it is a controller or the last middleware, right? Everything is a middleware, right? So what will happen here? Whenever we call the next, it will be the next function after the current function, right? So here the auth is the current function, right? The next function is the profile function. So when we will call this next function in this, whenever we will do this, it will actually call the profile function from the controllers. Following? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts? Please speak up.
I mean, not exactly related to middleware, but some parts in the previous.
Okay.
I mean, I can ask once you finish taking the whole session.
Sorry?
I mean, once you finish taking the whole session, I'll ask, like the end of
Okay,
session.
fine. Fine. All right. If there are any doubts, obviously you can ask me at the end. You can ask me in the middle motions. Okay. So the only reason for this op to exist is to verify the JWT. Okay. It will check if the JWT is valid or not. Okay. So let's head back to our JSON token and we can take a look at this JWT.verify basically. You guys can hear me?
Yes, sir. Now,
Okay. So the only reason for this auth middleware to exist is to verify the JWT. So the first thing we're going to do is import the JWT library. We'll do JWT require JSON with token. right? And first we'll get the authorization header. So do const. Let's just get the token instead. Token equals rec dot. Uh, I'm pretty sure it's headers dot auth. Okay, let's just get the header authorization on this. So let's just do a console log to check if this is perfect. Is this correct or not? Auth, and we'll do a call, right? So get back to the rester slash me route. Uh, Make sure to copy this, right? Keep it somewhere, you know. We don't need a body because this will be a get route. So no body and no. We'll just do an authorization of basic at this and send this. So user profile sent. Let's see if we got a token. Yep. So this is our entire header. Okay. Uh, I'll directly get the token. You should really verify what type of token it is as well. In my case, I probably wouldn't. So we'll do a split on space and we'll get the last element. Okay. So if you guys know how these functions work, that's great. In case you don't know, split does the split or slice. I don't know. Let's do slice, I guess. Yeah. So it will slice from space and then it will pop. And pop returns the last element from the array. Right. Just check this once again. Definitely there's some error. So right. So yeah, obviously it's split. My bad. So yeah. So we got the token, right? And first we got the token, then we need to verify it. So for that we'll do const payload, right, equals jwt dot verify the token, and I think we need to give the secret as well. So token and then the secret. So that is secret. And if it's not a valid token, it will throw an error. So we need to make sure we put it in a try catch, right? And we'll do a return of res dot send here, uh, res dot status. Unauthorized, I think it's 3 or 4. I'm not sure. Dot JSON. So these status codes, you probably would get used to this over time when you are doing your coding part, right? It's not something you have to learn, just from the get go, but it's something you should know whenever you're working in an actual production grade environment, right? So message would be invalid token, right? Data would be again nothing, and success would be false, right? And here we'll do first the payload. We'll verify it. In case it's verified, in that case, we will just do uh, something like rec dot payload equals payload. So we'll define a key payload and we'll give it whatever the value we got from the payload. Or maybe we should just do user and we'll just assign it payload. Since the only thing in a payload is to take a look at our user controller, right? So only thing in a payload really is the email, right? Yeah, just the email, right? And we'll do next, sorry, my bad, next call here, right? Okay, so let's go back to our controller. So what is happening here is that we got our payload, we verified it's a validatability right here, and then we call the next function. right? Next function is the profile request handler, which is in a controller. Nice. So what we're going to do is get the profile, get the user basically. So for that, again, we'll have to do this same thing: const user equals get repo user, and then we'll do const user equals await user repo dot find one, and we'll do basically pass the rec.user here, right? Rec.user, because rec.user has our payload, which is an object saying, so let's just write it here. So rec.user will be equal to our email, right? Since if you take a look at the authorization at the auth middleware, you're getting the payload, you're assigning it to rec.user, and calling the next. So this rec gets carried on to here as well. In this way, you can sort of share data between multiple middlewares as well. Hopefully, this works. Okay. User repo. Cool. Let's see if this works. Definitely some error somewhere. So it says um, no entity column I was found. Okay, my bad. So I guess this is not the correct way to do it. And I am thinking might be something like this, but let's just check it out once. I'll leave the controller await function for now and just check what the issue is. Right. So we'll do a quick console.log of payload here. Send it. Let's see what we got. So it says email and then an IAD. We just need the email. I guess this is fine. We'll just you know, make it a bit more specific. Cut this out. We'll do email rec.user.email. Cool. So and then we'll just send it here. Let's try this again. Nice. So we did not send anything regarding the user itself in the whole request. There is no data about the user except for the JWT token that we have sent. And just from that, we can get this whole thing in our response. Okay. So that would finish up your authentication database read write, right? And a lot of things, I guess. JWT was also covered, yes. So all of these things are covered. You guys are nearly ready with your APIs and everything, right? One more thing we're going to take a look at is .env. Okay. Again, just head over to your npm.js .env pm, right? So .env is used to manage environment variables in your applications, and it is they are used to store things like things like database information or things like jot secret, those things. So why do you use .env in the first place? So the main reason of using .env is because you want to protect some sensitive information, and your .env is not stored in your any repo or any GitHub repo or any. So your code does not have the .env. Most likely, in most cases, what will happen is that this .env is either configured in the server itself, in the production build server itself, or given to you in some secure or some private list or something like that, right? So what happens that process.env stores all the environment variables for a specific machine or specific module in this case. In case you guys have worked with Python virtual envs, it's very similar to that, right? So let's just create a .env file at the very top right here, and we'll take a look at it. So we'll call it .env, right? And we'll store things like these. So we just call this, we'll just need to store the host name, username, password, database. Four things. Four if you want to. So we'll do a db underscore uh, host. So we'll call this, you know, localhost db underscore user. Call this Postgres db underscore pass. That will be password, right? And db name. So that will be our node test, right? That we saved. And one more thing we need to save is the in our Node.js, right? We're using strings for now, but in actual case, it will be something very very random looking string, right? So we need to store the chart secret as well. So chart secret, and we'll change this to something like something random, I guess. That sounds not right. Okay, and we'll okay. Let's just go back to this first. So our .env is ready. We have to use this now. For that, again, we'll be importing, I mean, installing. We'll install .env, right? And the first thing we're going to do here before even Express is uh, configuring our environment. So for that, we'll do a require of .env dot config. If I'm not wrong, this is a function. Yeah, right. And this will use process.env dot db underscore host. And similarly for username, use control C this thing. And let be user, that will be pass, and that will be our DB name, right? Save this, and let's see if this even starts. Okay, it got connected. Great, so it's working fine. And in our here, we'll also do the same thing, process.env dot chart secret, right? And in our auth as well, we'll be replacing this with our process.env.jot secret. Okay, everything is fine. Let's do the login part and this thing again. Okay, so same as last time. Content type. We'll do application JSON. RD. What was it? Yeah, this was it. Email. Copy this. Password. Password. Let's see if this works. So cannot get. Oh my bad. Post because login is a post now. Right. User logged in. We got an access token. Copy this again. Right. Go back to our header. We'll change this to a get. Going to do the profile fetching. So do the slash me route. Do authorization basic this and hopefully this will work. User profile set. Cool. So all right. So everything is fine. I guess it's working. It's working right. So that would cover everything in a normal JS. That should be everything. Okay, we got a middlewares, we got a entity monos database things, we got our routes, we got our ELV. So today you guys are done with pretty much everything an API needs to do and an API needs to cover. Okay. Do you guys have any questions, any doubts? Did you guys follow? How did you like it?
Yes, right. It was pretty informative. Uh, yeah, I do have a few dots.
Hmm.
Yeah, first one, which is more secure, like signed cookies or the request headers? That's headers authorization. That.
Uh, See, secure as in which way?
As in terms of how prone is it to getting exposed, hacked, something like that. I'm not sure of the exact term, but yeah, something like that.
Okay, so I'll just give you an idea. So what happens with the headers, right? When you're using cookies, cookies are accessible by the server, right? So
Right.
in that case, you don't need to manually, whenever you're making the request, set the authorization header in the request. Okay. Uh, so cookies are obviously helpful in that case, that you don't need to, at least from the developer perspective, it's faster and easier. Okay? And so being the signed cookies, they're obviously, they're signed by the server, so nobody from whoever is accessing the device cannot actually understand what they actually need, right? So in that case, I guess cookies, signed cookies are more secure, right? Uh, the the idea is with the whole logout procedure is itself is that uh, when you're using something like tokens in the headers, right? You will most likely store tokens in your local storage or something like that, right? So in that case, your access tokens are obviously visible on the client side, and anybody can directly pick it up and use it, right? But the whole logout process itself becomes a client side process instead of a server side. Okay, so
Okay.
those
Yeah.
tokens can be destroyed from the client side directly instead of going through the whole procedure of it. Okay, so that's
Yes.
why uh, when you're using cookies, you generally make it so you generally design the system in such a manner that even your logout procedure is supposed to be sent to the server and server deletes the cookies. Okay,
Yes.
so in theory, you can clear the cookies from the client side as well, but it is generally made it in such a manner that your cookies are completely managed by the server and not by the user.
अच्छा भैया,
Okay.
ये देख, जो कुकीज बेस्ड सॉल्यूशन जो होता है वो तो बस ब्राउजर्स के केस में लाइक ऑटोमेटिकली कुकीज पास होते हैं ना, और इज इट फॉर ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ प्लेटफॉर्म्स?
यार यार ये डिपेंड करता है फ्रेमवर्क टू फ्रेमवर्क। आई थिंक तुम्हारा आरएन आल्सो सपोर्ट्स दिस कुकीज थिंग, बाय द वे। ठीक है।
सो दैट डिपेंड्स, वो फ्रेमवर्क स्पेसिफिकेशन से पता चलेगा, राइट?
यस, एज फार एज आई नो कुकीज तुम्हें मतलब मिल जाएंगी, हर जगह पे ही मिल जाएगी ऑलमोस्ट। कुछ ना लाइक अब तो क्रॉस प्लेटफॉर्म फ्रेमवर्क्स कैन नॉट सपोर्ट दीस थिंग्स। ठीक है। मे बी नॉट नेटिव प्लेटफॉर्म्स बट क्रॉस प्लेटफॉर्म वाले जितने सब सपोर्ट करते हैं। एंड दैट इज लाइक द सेम ऑथराइजेशन सिस्टम तुम लिखते हो, एंड दैट इज वन मोर रीजन व्हाई वी टेंड टू यूज लोकल स्टोरेज अगेंस्ट कुकीज। ठीक है। तो इट इज लाइक कॉमन ऑथराइजेशन सिस्टम बन जाता है। ठीक है।
अच्छा, और हाउ इज सेशन बेस्ड ऑथराइजेशन डिफरेंट फ्रॉम दिस? लाइक क्या डिफरेंट होगा
मैंने
लॉजिक?
फर्स्ट फर्स्ट में बताया था कि सेशन में बेसिकली एक डीबी एंट्री होती है। ओके, सो व्हाट हैपेंस दैट कि जब तू सेशन बेस्ड ऑपरेशन करता है तो यू एक्चुअली क्रिएट अ डेटाबेस एंट्री इन द सेशन टेबल। ओके, in the session table you say that this user got logged in. Okay, this user got logged in at this time from this device. Okay, so whenever you're again मतलब फ्यूचर में जब भी होने वाला है ना, कोई भी तुम रिक्वेस्ट करोगे तो इट विल चेक फॉर दैट सेशन क्वेरी, सेशन एंट्री। ओके, एंड देखेगा कि तुम्हारा डिवाइस इसको मैच करता है कि नहीं मैच करता है। ओके,
एंड डिवाइस का डिटेक्शन किस बेसिस पे होता है? लाइक क्या आइडेंटिफायर क्या होता है?
बहुत तरीके होते हैं। समटाइम्स इट्स सिंपल एज आईपी। ओके, समटाइम्स इट्स वेरी सिंपल एज आईपी, जस्ट आईपी उठा लिया। ये रिक्वेस्ट में आईपी की भी एक फील्ड होती है। ठीक है,
राइट, हाँ।
तो समटाइम्स वेरी
रिक्वेस्ट नहीं,
सिंपल
आई
सिंपल
थिंक वो
आईपी
लोड
भी
बैलेंसर्स इंजेक्ट करते हैं ना आईपी।
लोड बैलेंसेस इंजेक्ट करते हैं आईपी? नो, आई डोंट थिंक सो।
लाइक मैंने अभी
क्लाइंट आईडी रहता है।
क्लाइंट आईपी जाता है रिक्वेस्ट के साथ।
यस, जाता है रिक्वेस्ट के बाद।
ओके।
एज फार एज आई नो, हो सकता है गलत हो। ठीक है, आई डोंट थिंक लोड बैलेंसेस डू एनीथिंग विद द रिक्वेस्ट इटसेल्फ। ठीक है। और एक और तरीका ये होता है, दिस इज समथिंग आई हैव सीन services do, is that sometimes whenever you sign in with a new device, specifically things like Google and Facebook love to do this, they basically register the client. Okay, so like let's say you logged in from your device with a with the application, right? It will register that application, your device with that application. Okay, so basically क्या होता है ना, your device gets a custom ID created on the database as well as the client side.
Okay. हाँ हाँ.
समझ रहे हो? So you तुमने देखा होगा ना,
Right. वो security settings में you can
your
change
account
उसका.
has been accessed with a new device, which is Google does that a lot,
Mhm.
right? So it basically creates a custom ID. Okay, you'll see this happen a
Okay.
lot. Even मैं भी एक like startup idea पे काम कर रहा हूँ, तो उसमें भी हम लोग यही चीज कर रहे हैं, creating like device IDs.
Okay.
Cool. और किसी को डाउट था, कोई क्वेश्चन?
But I suppose it's like a route to just update a specific user detail or something. In that case, we don't need to send any data back, right?
You need to update.
Yeah, just some suppose the user is updating his name.
Okay, खुद का.
Yeah, just his name. For that, we have to just respond with like a message, name updated and success as true. Only those two are enough, right?
Yeah, but see, generally speaking, data is sent, जैसे update के केस में तुम बोल रहे हो, right? So it will be either a put request or patch request, right? So in case of a pull request, you probably send the complete data. ठीक है? You send the complete data. Doesn't matter. Okay. In case of something like patch request, where something just name change हो रहा है, or something like username change हो रहा है, you probably just send whatever is being changed. Okay. And the reason for doing this is because, generally speaking, every application sort of have this client side profile system or something state existent. Okay. So basically, on success, that gets updated from the request response.
Okay, so it just like overrides the
Yeah.
pass value with the
Mhm.
from the request response.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So from tomorrow, we'll go over to our this thing, TypeScript. Okay. So TypeScript, and from tomorrow, actually, we'll just get started with the whole WhatsApp thing. Okay. So we'll create a WhatsApp architecture, or sort of. We'll be dealing with sockets, right? So we'll be creating first. Actually, I'll just give you how the architecture of WhatsApp works. Maybe after the whole thing, after we're done with the whole thing, because obviously we're not going to scale it to that. Okay, but I'll give you an idea what does it take. Okay, but technologies हम लोग सारी वही use करेंगे, whatever they use on device databases, everything. Cool. In our case, our database would be, browser database, but chalo, whatever. Right. I'll probably give you guys some pre-made, repo दे दूंगा, some React repo. ये clone कर लेना. And we'll probably be coding on both the sides because sockets requires a connection from both the server and the client. Okay. So एक
Yes.
React based repo दे दूंगा. You guys can work on that.
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right. Notion भी मैंने एक I guess तुमने Notion देखा कि नहीं देखा, I don't know. उसको देख
Yes,
सकते हो, उसको देख सकते हो. It will have a lot more things. I think tomorrow morning I'll add the things covered in today's session as well. Right. Theoretical concept बहुत सारे हैं उसमें. ठीक है. So those you can study actually.